Boo! Hi, it's me. I'm back, guys. You know, I just thought it would be nice to take a little 4 or 5 minute stroll into the void, yet I had no idea that time works completely different there. What I thought was just a 4 minute stroll turned out to be 4 months in the real world, so, my apologies for not posting in 4 months. My bad. I didn't realize. You know, it happens. It totally happens. Enough of that though. Hello, I am back with a video, and I thought it would be a good idea for me to become a teacher today. That is a great idea for me, isn't it? I know what I'm doing. I haven't posted in a little bit, but while I've been away, I have been making art. I've been getting really into clay pens and having so much fun making them, and I thought it might be a cool little thing for me to throw out a tutorial on how to make clay pens and my whole process with it, because it's something that I've been super into. I'm probably not the best at explaining things, but I'm going to try to make a nice little video, especially for people who haven't seen my channel before and maybe this gets thrown into your feed and you want to learn how to do this. I'm going to try to be a good teacher. So yeah, let's see what happens. So I think a good starting point is to show you what clay pens are. If you aren't new here, you've seen this board before. I do a fun little series of making random Pokemon clay pens. It's definitely not painful, but it's been fun. It's been a while since I've done that, but here's my little pen board of all sorts of different clay pens I've made. If you've never seen clay pens before, this be them. I'm sure a lot of people know what like enamel pens are, these little metal pens. Clay pens are basically just like this, but you make them yourself out of clay. And it's so much fun. There's so much you can do with them. Like you can make flat pens, or you can have a lot of fun and make like these 3D shapes on your pens like I did with my Digital Circus pens. And it's pretty easy to do, honestly. You just got your little pen that you sculpt out and you paint it. You put a little pin back on the back of it. And to make it all shiny, I use UV resin, but there's different glosses that you can use. Like you can use Mod Podge if you don't want to deal with the hassle of UV resin, because there's a lot of stuff to that. But yeah, these are pretty much clay pens. They are so fun to make, and once you make them, you can get like a cute little pin board like this to hang them up, or you can put them on bags, or they make these cool little, I think they're called ITA bags, where you can display your pens in them, and that's pretty cool. There's just all sorts of stuff you can do with them. So if you're looking for like a new hobby or a new medium and you want to try something different, this is definitely a great thing to do. It could also be a fun little date night with your partner or some friends of yours. You just buy a pack of clay, get some paint, and you can just do whatever. I think it would be really sweet as like a little date night. You can even make pens of your pets if you two have any pets together, and it could be a cute little keepsake or memory where it's like, oh look, it's this little pen I made. I remember I made this one night with you, and that's so cool, isn't it? I don't know what I'm talking about. It's just a lot of fun, and I think it's cool for people to try new things, so I wanted to make a little tutorial on how I make my pens for people, I guess. So yeah. Okay, so it is time to go teacher mode, I guess. I know what I'm doing. This is bringing you confidence. It's fine. We got it. We're gonna get through this together, fellas. To start off, here is the list of materials that you are going to need. It might look a little overwhelming, but it's all gonna come together. Alright. I'm gonna try to quickly go over some stuff about each material. If you'd like, you can go ahead and skip to this timestamp. This is where I just go ahead and get into it all. This is just so if anyone wants some extra details or preferences of mine, opinions, you can keep watching. I'm just kind of going over what each material is. So feel free to skip to this timestamp if you just want to get right into it. If not, we're gonna talk about stuff. So to start off, the main thing you need is clay. You can use polymer clay or air dry clay. I am going to be using polymer clay in this video because this is my preference. Air dry clay works perfectly fine. If you have more patience, cool. With air dry clay, it's just when it does dry, it tends to be a little bit more rough. So when you use air dry clay, you have to be prepared to sand it a whole lot more compared to polymer clay. With polymer clay, you sculpt out your stuff, you throw it in the oven, you let it cool down, and it tends to come out smooth compared to air dry clay. Only complaint with polymer clay is sometimes when you bake it, it will get slight bubbles. It's kind of a pain. I have a little bit of a trick to help with that, but with the bubbles, you can also take a small sander and sand it out. But pretty much, I prefer polymer clay. I really like the brand Sculpey. They're pretty affordable and easy to use. I've said it in some past videos of mine. Originally, I didn't really like using polymer clay because it's tough on my hands. My hands tend to ache pretty quickly, especially when working with clay. It's kind of a pain, but this version of Sculpey, the original, is super soft and it's so much easier to use for me. So if you have a tough time with your hands, I highly, highly recommend using this brand. So the next material I'm going to talk about is a roller. So I highly recommend getting a acrylic roller like this. Acrylic rollers are great because the clay will not stick to this. If you have a wooden roller, you're more than likely going to deal with it sticking pretty bad. I used to use a wooden roller, but once I gave this thing a try, I'm not going back, man. I'm not going back. So I highly recommend using these. You can just find these online on Amazon, or you should possibly be able to find them in a craft store. I don't see why not. But yeah, I highly recommend this. This is what you use to roll out your clay. It's pretty nice. It's handy. It's small. You can keep it on your desk easier compared to a wooden roller. So yeah, you're also going to need these pen backs and the little buttons so you don't stab your fingers. I think these are called pen tacks. Does anyone know the official name for these, for the backs of pens? I think it's just tacks, right? Sometimes when you just look up tacks, you don't see these, and it's kind of really confusing. But you need these, and you need the little backing buttons so you don't hurt yourself. You can get all sorts of fun different shapes and stuff. I got these cool little stars. You can get black stars, or you can get like little buttons. There's all sorts of stuff. If you don't like the little silicone stuff, you can also get butterfly pens. Like, I think that's what they're called, the little butterfly clutch thing. I don't know. That works perfectly fine too. Whatever you prefer. Now next, the fun material is paint markers. So I highly recommend acrylic markers for pens. They're so much fun to use with clay. They work perfectly. It's pretty smooth. I think I would recommend for beginners using acrylic markers compared to painting the pens, because you kind of have better control with a marker than a paintbrush, in my personal opinion. But whichever works best for you, go for it. It doesn't have to be this brand. I just really, really like Arrtx. They're pretty affordable and their packaging is great. I love the way they package their markers. But yeah, either use acrylic markers or, listen to me, with gouache, make sure your gouache is acrylic. Trust me. I have tried water-based gouache on pens before, and the terror and pain of putting resin on my pens that I painted for like 30-40 minutes getting washed away as soon as I put the resin on. It's terrible. I don't want that to happen to anybody. I don't know what it is with me. Like, I've seen tutorial videos where people have used water-based gouache, like Himi gouache, and it works perfectly. But for me, every time I've used water-based gouache, it just gets smeared into oblivion, and it's awful. So use acrylic. If you can get acrylic gouache, use acrylic gouache. It doesn't have to be this brand. I got this a while ago. Like, any sort of acrylic-based gouache will be your friend, right? Trust me. Now, these are basic materials. I'm sure you fellas, I don't know why I keep calling you guys fellas. It's been a minute since I've recorded. I'm sorry. Since you guys, people, are probably artists or interested in something new, I'm sure you have paper, scissors, a pencil laying around. This, highly recommend using, goodness. With my process, I like to make stencils for my clay pens. It makes things super easy. And yeah, so you're gonna need scissors, paper, and a pencil to draw out little stencils with this method. So I hope I'm not forgetting anything before I go on to this segment of materials, because this is where you need to listen in closely. I'm also gonna put a heads up later in the video when we get to this part, but we're gonna go on to the materials you need to make your pens all shiny. What I use for my pens is UV resin. Now, UV resin is not to be taken lightly. This stuff you do not want to breathe in. It is not good for you to breathe in. It's not good for you to get on your skin, but this stuff is great because it makes your pens all shiny and pretty looking. It makes them pretty durable too. You just really got to be careful with this stuff. If you are a child watching this, ask an adult to help you with this. Do not do this by yourself. Resin is not, you do not want to breathe this stuff in. Be safe, be responsible, and yeah. So with the resin, I highly recommend using gloves when you're working with it so it doesn't get on your fingers. It is bound to get on your fingers. With the clay pens being so tiny and you having to handle them, it will get on your skin. So please think about wearing gloves. And that way you don't have to deal with every time you pick up your pen, you gotta go wash your hands and get all this sticky stuff off. Wear gloves. You will thank me later. The other thing you're gonna need for this process is a mask. So I have a respirator mask for this because I make pens and sell them. So I make batches. I will be sitting down and putting resin on pens for up to 2 hours in one sitting. So a respirator mask works best for me. If you don't want to go all out, just a normal cloth mask should work. And honestly, if you have like a deck or a garage, an outdoor area that is ventilated well, you should do this process outside. I unfortunately do not have that. I live in a small house. I don't have a garage. I don't really have an outside area that I can go to. Like, I don't have a deck. So when I'm working on my pens, I work in my bedroom and I can only just open up the windows and have fans going and wear a mask. So if you're in the same situation where you can only do this inside, I highly recommend you getting one of these. It is a godsend. You really can't smell the resin through this and it filters everything out pretty well. So if you can get a little respirator mask, highly recommend. Now, the last thing you need for the whole shiny part is a curing lamp. So I have this little resin curing lamp. It works great. I highly recommend it. I can fit a bunch of pens at once in this thing. It's pretty cool. If you don't have a UV curing lamp, you can always use like a little flashlight, or you can just set them outside and the sun will cure them. It just takes a whole lot longer. But alright, I think that's all that I really needed to cover. There might be some other materials on the list that I didn't get to in here. If I didn't, it's not that important. It's mainly self-explanatory, or I'll get to it when I'm working on the pen. So let's go on and get started on making some cool pins. The first thing that we are going to do to get started on making some clay pins is, of course, coming up with a design. You can either do this traditionally, you can sketch out some rough concepts in the sketchbook and whatever design you like best, and you can go on to making a final drawing. Pretty much we're making stencils. The method that I use for making clay pins is pretty much like a cookie cutter, and I use that as a stencil to make the pens. You can do this traditionally or you can do this digitally. I honestly prefer making my designs digitally because it's easier to mess around with colors, but either way, it's whatever you prefer. So for this video, I already went ahead and designed some clay pins, and I'm super hyped to make them because it's spooky month. I thought it would be really cute to make some Halloween themed pin designs, so that's what I did. I made this cute little mushroom ghost, a pumpkin, and a black kitty cat. I thought this would be really cute as like a little bundle of Halloween pens. And yeah, so that's what I'm gonna make. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you my method of making the stencils with my tablet. If you're just doing traditional art, pretty much you got your design, you draw it on a piece of paper, and then you're gonna cut it out as a stencil. With my tablet, I went ahead and colored these in just so I can have an idea of what I want the actual paint to look like, but I just layered it out and I just saved the line art. Make sure it's black so it's easy to see, and make sure when you're saving your design that the background's white, because we're going to be using an app, pretty much like a light box, to trace over this on a piece of paper is what we're going to be doing. So just make sure you got all your layers and you got your little stencils that we're going to be making. I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, the app I use is just called Lightbox Trace. It's nothing super fancy. It's kind of a buggy app, but it gets the job done. You're going to want to open up the app and select your little stencil, and you can pinch and zoom down the size you want. You can mess around with it. This app is kind of tricky though, because when you have the right size that you like, you press this little lock button, but once it's locked, it kind of bugs out and you can't unlock it. So make sure you have the size down exactly how you'd like it to be before locking. I think that should be good. Now we're just going to turn down the lights and take a piece of paper and trace over it. I'm just using a colored pencil, but you can use pens, a mechanical pencil, whatever you prefer. This definitely doesn't have to be perfect. And honestly, if you want, you can just do the outline shape. You don't have to add all the details, but I just like to do that because I use it as a reference. My cat's stencil got a little messed up, but that's alright, I'll make it work. Once your stencils are done, pretty much looks like this, and we're going to now go on to cutting them out. This process is pretty self-explanatory and not too complicated, as long as your design isn't super complex. This should be pretty easy. Okay, so out of here, paper. Once your little stencils are all cut out, it should look something like this. Look at how cute those are. These are pretty much your little cookie cutters, is what you can call them. Your little cookie cutter stencils. So now it is time to go on to rolling out the clay. Alright, so now it is time to get into using the clay. I'm going to be using polymer clay for this video because I prefer it. I went over some details on reasonings why I prefer polymer clay earlier, so if you're interested, you can just go back and listen to my ramblings, but I'm going to be using polymer clay. If you want to use air dry clay or different types of clay, go for it. It might just work a little different for you. I pretty much prefer using polymer clay. So we're just gonna start softening up the clay by messing with it with your hands until it starts getting a little softer. Once you think it's good, you can just go ahead and flatten it like a pancake, like so. And pull out your handy dandy acrylic roller. If you don't have one of these, I highly recommend using one. They're great. They're easy to use. If you only have a wooden roller, you can make it work. Just prepare for it to probably slightly stick to your clay. But we're going to just roll it out like a pancake. Now with your pens, you don't want them to be super thick, but not super thin either. You want to get a good in between of the two. Okay, once you get to a thickness that you are happy with, you're gonna go ahead and stop rolling. I think that should be fine. It doesn't have to be perfect either. If you're just making this for fun, you're fine. Once your clay is pancake shaped, we can go ahead and start cookie cutting, is what I like to call this method. This is the cookie cutter method. Now, I realized earlier when I was going over all the different materials in detail, I forgot to talk about the good old Xacto knife. Please be careful while using Xacto knives. They are sharp, you can cut yourself. If you do not feel confident for whatever reason on using an Xacto knife, if you have any sculpting tools like this with like the little pointy tip on the bottom, you can honestly use this to cut them out. It might just be a little more rougher around the edges, but you can smooth it out. But this way you're not having to worry about stabbing yourself. This should work fine. But today we're going to be using an Xacto knife because I totally trust myself. And you're just gonna want to take your little stencil and just pat them down. You don't have to pat them down, I don't know what I'm talking about. You pretty much just hold them over the clay, you take your little Xacto knife, and you cut around the shape like so. Now sometimes your paper will stick to the clay. If you're worried about your nails like digging up the clay, I recommend taking the edge of your Xacto knife here and just going under the paper and raising it. It's a whole lot easier to go about it that way than worrying about like trying to grab it and just scraping up the clay. Once it is cut out, you just take it out of the little pancake and there's your shape. Now the edges, you just take your fingers and you smooth it out to your heart's content. I will say I have pets, and their hair gets everywhere. You're bound to get little dusties and hair on your clay. It's kind of a pain. You can leave it be, because once you paint over it, you won't be able to see it. If it's real bad, you can take some isopropyl, like alcohol, and just a little Q-tip, and just put a little bit on a Q-tip and rub it and it will come right off. I've just kind of given up because I have pets. But for majority of this, you can just use your fingers to smooth it out. With the little edges there, with the little arms, that's a little bit more tricky. That's where I recommend using sculpting tools just to flatten that out. And it doesn't have to be perfect because you can also take a little sander to smooth out the edges as well once it's done baking. I think that's pretty good. So we're gonna set this little ghost to the side and we're gonna go on to cutting out the kitty cat and the pumpkin next. Alright, so after that, now you should have cute little guys who are ready to be set ablaze. Alright, now it is time to put these guys in the oven to burn. This process is pretty easy. Just please make sure to follow the instructions on the back of your polymer clay packaging. The brand I use is Sculpey, so my oven is set to 275 degrees and I'm baking these ghouls sparkles. I'm baking these spooky fellas for 15 minutes. So just follow whatever directions your clay says to do. If you're using polymer clay, just make sure to follow those directions because you do not want to burn these. If you burn them, they will become really brittle, which is not fun and is not good. So please make sure you follow your instructions. And I'll see you in 15 minutes, more like 2 seconds. Alright. These boys just got out of the oven. They be hot. Normally I would let them cool down for about 5 minutes, but I brought this up earlier in the video. Sometimes with polymer clay, you will get these slight bubbles like so. These ones aren't too bad. I've had worse. I wouldn't stress too much about them because once you paint and put the resin on, you can barely really notice them. Something that I like to do is if the bubbles are real bad, I just take the roller and while it's warm, I slightly just roll them out if I can. Sometimes it smooths them out, sometimes it doesn't. This shouldn't really mess anything up either way. Either it's gonna do something or it's gonna do nothing. And right now, it does not look like it's doing much for me. I don't know, if any of you have better methods, please feel free to share because I have no idea. I've seen some things online where it's like, oh, take a toothpick and poke at it, but it just kind of leaves a hole instead and it doesn't look too great. We're not going to stress out too much. They're not terrible. They're just a little annoying, but once we paint these over and put the resin on, it smooths it out pretty decently. So that's sort of a trick that might help you. If not, then I'm sorry. Nonetheless though, look at our fellas! Aren't they so cute? I'm so excited to paint these. They're all done. So with polymer clay, you might be a little concerned because it's like, oh, it's bendy. Polymer clay has a little bit of stretch to them. That's fine. That's a good sign. You'd rather them be slightly stretchy and bendy than brittle. So that just shows that they are baked. It's good. Once you put the resin on them, it will definitely be more sturdy and hard, so no need to fear, all is well, all is fine. But now that we got our little guys, it is time to go on to the fun part, which is painting. I'm going to be using my acrylic markers to paint these today. If you have acrylic markers too, I highly recommend using them for clay. It is a lot of fun, and I honestly think it's easier than painting with a paintbrush, but if you prefer painting with paintbrushes and you have some acrylic wash on hand or just acrylic paint, go for it. But yeah, we are going to go on to the painting process. I will say I'm going to go ahead and speed through this process. It's pretty self-explanatory. You guys can just chill and start painting with me while this is going all fast while I'm painting. Or you can just go ahead and skip the little time lapse onto the next part. Alright, after about 45 minutes, look at these guys! Aren't they so cute? I am in love with these three little Halloween dudes. That's what I'll call them. We got the pumpkin, We got the kitty cat and the ghost. I am so happy with these. They're nothing like too crazy complicated. I think they're simple and so cute. I am so excited to make them all shiny and put the resin on them. I think they're going to look so cool. So yeah, I hope you guys also put together some cool stuff. There's so much you can do with clay, man. I'm curious. If you guys made little pins while watching this video or after watching this video, please tell me down below what you decided to make, because I'm real curious. I don't know if you stuck with a Halloween theme too or made something completely different and unique. But alright, since these guys are all painted, it is time to go on to making them all shiny. Now in this tutorial, I'm going to go ahead and use UV resin to make them all shiny. You gotta listen in. Resin is no joke. You gotta do some stuff to make sure that you're safe, because resin is not good to breathe in. It is not good for you. So please take care of yourself and take these precautions if you're going to go ahead and use UV resin as well. To start things off, you are going to want to make sure you use gloves during this process. I highly recommend using gloves, because while working on the resin with these little itty bitty pins, you are bound to get the resin on your fingers. And getting the resin on your skin is not good. It's not fun either. It's sticky and doesn't feel very nice on your hands, so it kind of saves the hassle of constantly having to get up and have the urge to wash your hands. To avoid all that altogether, please wear gloves. You'll thank me later. They're annoying, yeah, but you gotta look out for yourself. The next thing I highly recommend that you use is a mask. I have a respirator mask. I went over details about this earlier. If you skip through that part of the video, that's okay. I'm just going to reiterate it here. Please wear a mask. This stuff, you do not want to breathe in. It's not good for you. Please look after yourself. It doesn't have to be a respirator mask. If you just have a cloth mask, that should be more than fine. I will also say, if you have a garage or an outdoor area like a deck or a front porch or something, I highly advise you doing this whole process outside or in a garage, because this stuff is toxic for you to breathe in. It's not very nice. So if you have an outdoor area, do this part outside. Unfortunately, I do not have a garage or an outside place where I'm at to go do this whole process. I have to do this in my bedroom. So if you're in the same position, make sure you have a window cracked open, have a mask on, have some fans going. You don't want to breathe this stuff in, pretty much. I also, of course, managed to forget something to bring up in the beginning with my materials list, so I'm going to say it now, and I will make sure to put an updated materials list in the description. I highly recommend you using a lighter. If you have a small lighter, that works fine. I like using these long candle lighters because it's just easier to maneuver, I guess, and I'm further away from fire. Yeah, you're gonna want a lighter because with the resin, when you put it on and you smooth it all out, sometimes you will get bubbles. And to get rid of those bubbles, lighters are a godsend. They help so much with getting rid of those annoying little bubbles. So this thing will be your friend on making your resin all smooth and nice looking. Highly recommend it. With that though, I think I got all my points out of the way. So now it's time to make these fellas all shiny. I'm gonna go ahead and just do a time lapse of this process. I might do a little voiceover going over tips and stuff and what I'm doing. I guess we'll see. I've never done a voiceover before, so we'll see how that goes if I go through with that. But with that being said, it's time to make these little Halloween dudes shiny. I'm so excited to see how these turn out. Boo! Oh my god, isn't this so spooky? This is a voiceover. I'm new to this. Just to get right to it, to put on the resin, you just put a little on and get an old paintbrush and just apply it like so. We're gonna do this in layers. I don't like to just have one layer of resin. I like putting two because I think it just makes it more smooth in my opinion. And that way, if your first layer you have some bumps or it's a little rough, putting down a second layer will definitely help smooth that out. Fire. So fire helps with bubbles and just smoothing it out. Once your first layer of resin is good, you just put them in the curing lamp and let them cure. I let them cure for about 5 minutes. If your pens are slightly tacky to the touch, they are not cured, so you're going to want to cure them for a couple more minutes. You will know they're cured when there's no tackiness to them. Now I'm working on the second layer of resin just to make them extra smooth. Now I only do 2 layers for the fronts of them. I don't really worry about doing 2 layers of resin for the backs or the sides because those are fine. It's just the front that you really want to be all smooth and nice looking. If you want to go for it and do 2 layers all together on each side and the back of it, go for it. Just be prepared for it to take a little bit longer. Now when applying the pen backs, you just put a little dot of resin in the center and put down your little tack. And once your backs are all done, then you just throw them in the lovely UV lamp to cure for 5 minutes as well. And once they're all done, then you get to go on to putting the little backing button on. I chose these little black stars because I thought they were pretty cute. Now I like to wait to put the resin on the sides until I have the pen backs on, because using the little silicone backing button, it's a whole lot easier to hold the pen from that to put the resin on the sides. So I highly recommend waiting to do the sides until the back of your pen is cured and you have little silicone buttons on. For the resin on the sides, I just take a little plastic cap and I use it as a little cup to put the resin in, and then I just dip my paintbrush into it to then apply it to the sides of the pen. Now this part can be a little tricky and messy, so just please be gentle when applying. You don't want to go too heavy-handed or it will overlap to the front or the back of your pen. Out of both situations, I'd rather it overlap to the back of the pen, but just be careful. Now curing the sides is honestly kind of a painful part. I still don't really have it all down, but I just take the lamp itself and hold it at an angle for 2 minutes and then switch sides until it's all cured. Resin can definitely be a stressful process. It's a bit messy, but if you just go slow and steady, I'm sure you got it and it's going to turn out great. Alright, after blinding these spooky fellas in the wonderful UV light of my curing lamp, they are done, and here's how they turned out. Look at how cute these little spooky guys are. I am so happy with how these turned out. Aren't they so cute? I don't know if I have a favorite. I think I love all of them, honestly. If I had to pick a favorite, I think it would have to be the mushroom ghost, because I love mushrooms and ghosts, and it's, look at how happy they are. Now that the resin is all cured, I think there's only one more thing we have to do to end this video. We gotta put these spooky fellas in their new home. We're gonna bring out the pen board. I had to remove some fellas to fit these guys in. I love them. Look at them. Since we're at the end of the video now though, thank you so much if you took the time for watching this. I hope this tutorial was super helpful. I feel a little bad that this tutorial is quite long, but I just wanted to make sure I was pretty thorough on how to make pens. But if any of you have any questions for anything in this process, feel free to let me know and I will try to answer as best as I can. I guess I'm just gonna go back to the void now, where I belong. Hopefully I won't spend another 4 minutes or 4 months in there. I'll try not to. We'll see what happens. Thanks for still sticking around if you're still here, and yeah. I still suck at outros. Isn't this lovely? Okay, I need to end it. So goodbye. Goodbye, fellas. I hope you have a wonderful spooky month. Alright.